Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I have something very special today that I'm super excited about. This is a hyper-realistic umbilical cord tutorial for vinyl doll kits. For this part of the tutorial, I am going to be using some phthalo green. I believe it's phthalo green 06. And some titanium white. I will also be using Genesis glazing gel, which is essential to creating realistic vinyl umbilical cords. This is how I paint vinyl umbilical cords, and this is not the technique that I would use for a clay umbilical cord. So definitely don't confuse the two. I only recommend painting the vinyl cords this way. There will be a clay umbilical cord sculpting tutorial later on down the line when I start offering channel memberships. But for now, I'm going to be teaching the vinyl umbilical cords. I will also be using the Bountiful Baby custom creases. This is the only thing that I use this color for, which is why I have quite a bit in this jar. I have yellow ochre. As you can see, I use a lot of it. I go through this color like mad. I have the Bountiful Baby lip blush nail red. Now, don't make the mistake of using red when painting the umbilical cord. This should only be for the tip where it was cut and severed and some blood pooling, or some leftover blood might actually still be there. A umbilical cord does not look like flesh. It looks like an umbilical cord. And the look that we are going for here today is very similar to my son here when he was about an hour old. We will also be using a vein blue color. I also have brushes here that are specific for each individual thing. I have a brush here that I will be using for the titanium white, for the phthalo green, and for the yellow as well, because these are lightly applied and easy to clean off this. I have a brush here that I use specifically for the glazing gel and for blending the colors in. And then I have some brushes here specifically for the blue and for the red. I also use this glass candle holder to kind of balance this on for me to make it easier to paint. So I'm going to start by prepping the entirety of the umbilical cord with some glazing gel. Glazing gel is really important when achieving a realistic umbilical cord because it's nice and shiny, gives it that freshly birthed look, and then it makes all of the paint that we're applying to it nice and translucent, and it makes it look incredible. And you're going to bake it while it's still wet. So this first initial prep, you are going to apply it. Make sure that it's nice and smooth. If there's any pooling, you're going to use your sponge and you're going to blot it out. And then you can set that with your heat set gun or bake it as per usual. But it's really important to prep the umbilical cord with this first initial layer of glazing gel medium. So now that the umbilical cord has been set, I set it for about 5 minutes with my heat set gun. And you see it's got kind of a nice sheen to it compared to the rest of the vinyl. Now this tutorial is specifically for the umbilical cord. It's not a full painting tutorial for the tummy plate. It's just the umbilical cord that I'm going over right now. And the reason why I am painting it blank is because I think that it's more realistic to paint the umbilical cord first, because it truly makes it look like it is emerging from the umbilicus of the baby's tummy, compared to fully reborning and then doing the umbilical cord. It truly makes it look like it's really coming from beneath. The second part of this tutorial will take place after the baby has been fully painted. So to save on any confusion, this is what the tutorial is about. So I have already neutralized the kit before I started this process. It was kind of yellowish, and I gave it some lavender washes to bring it down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of these two colors and some more glazing medium to make it a little bit more translucent in color. So again, I'm going to take glazing medium, and I'm going to completely cover the umbilical cord. Now you can see where it twists and ridges. Typically in an umbilical cord, right along these bottom grooves is where the vein is going to be very present and extremely visible, with just a little bit emerging from visibility right here. So in those areas are where I'm going to go over with the phthalo green to kind of tone down the vinyl. Some right here too. So I'm just going to blend that in. And then this will enhance the vein areas when that time comes. So in that groove right here too is where a vein will be more visible. I'm just going to kind of blend it into the rest of the cord. And then I'm actually going to just let this dry for a couple of minutes. About 5 minutes at the most. Here's a bit more up close of the green and how it looks. So next we are going to make it a bit more translucent by adding some more glazing gel and white. So this time I'm just going to take my glazing gel and add it to the umbilical cord here. Trying not to smudge any of the green that I have created. I'm just going to get the white and then start blending it in. To make it more translucent. I'm just going to keep blending it. Holding the belly plate upside down, I'm going to get into the underneath. I'm going to spread some of that paint to underneath, as well as add more as I need until it's fully covered and more translucent looking. And so now I'm going to blend it all out with my sponge. And my brush. so that it's all nice and smooth and not textured looking just yet. And so this is what your umbilical cord will look like when you've blended it all together. And then I am going to take a toothpick and get out any paint that's gotten in the creases. And then I'm going to cure it with my heat set gun for about 5 minutes. And I'm also going to clean up any of the paint. See the white paints that got anywhere. Another reason why it's more beneficial to paint the umbilical cord before the baby. You see how it's already kind of really starting to look real? So over here, I have the creases mix here, and I'm going to add it to some thinners, and then I'm going to rest it on my sponge so that all of the paint accumulates into the side of my paint, like the paint dish, like so. I'm actually going to add a little bit more, and then I have a liner brush here, and I'm going to mix it so that it's not super thick, but it's not super thin either. Nice consistency. And then we are going to do all of the creases and wrinkles with this color. So it's going to be about, needs to be a little bit thicker than that. There we go. And since we're painting the umbilical cord with thicker layers and lots of glazing gel medium, another beneficial reason to paint it before the baby is baking it quite a bit will substantially cure the paint, so you don't have any issues with it later on. So I'm just going to go over all of the creases and wrinkles, starting with this deeper crease in the umbilicus. Like that. Try to keep the paint in the creases only and not in the umbilical cord at all. See how realistic it's looking already? Using my cosmetic wedge to blend that out and dab any excess paint. And I'm going to go over this a couple of times until I'm satisfied. I'm also going to enhance this bulge here. And I'm also going to outline the bottom with this color as well. And again, I'm going to hold the tummy plate upside down to really get in these creases. I'm going to go over this belly button crease more times than I am the rest of it. I'll probably go over that crease 4 or 5 times, and then the rest of the creases 2 or 3 times. And I'm only going to enhance this bulge and outline this that one initial time. So I'm not going to go over that again. Just going to keep going over these creases until I'm satisfied with how it looks. And then I'm going to blend it all with my cosmetic wedge. And again, anywhere that has excessive pooling of paint, I'm going to take a toothpick and blend that out, get all that excess paint out, and then go over the main crease, the belly button crease, a few more times. So here we go. I have blended out any paint pooling, and I've gone over all of the creases quite a few times, and I am pretty content with how this looks. And to save the integrity of all of this creasing, it is so important to go ahead and bake right now for 10 minutes in the convection oven. I bake in a convection oven. If you do a new wave, bake for 10 minutes. If you are using a heat set gun, do it for 5 minutes, let cool, do it for another 5 minutes, and then let cool. And then we'll move on to our next step. So now that the umbilical cord has been baked for 10 minutes, this is what it looks like. It's already starting to look super real. Okay, so I have this paintbrush here. It's a larger paintbrush. And now I'm going to add another layer of Genesis Medium, the glazing gel. Over the top. I'm going to go through and make sure that there's no glazing gel in areas that I don't want it. And then I'm going to set this immediately with my heat set gun for a good 5 minutes on the front, and then I'll flip it upside down and then hit it with my heat gun underneath for about 5 minutes. And now you can see after that application of the glazing gel, it's really starting to take on that sheen for the umbilical cord. So now what we are going to do is we're going to start adding more detail and depth to the veining. So we're going to take This is the Vein Blue mix, and I really like this color for this particular style of umbilical cords, for the umbilical cords that have been yellowing. So again, I'm going to take my glazing gel, the umbilical cord, once again until I have a nice even layer, nice and smooth. It brings out the undertones and looks really nice. And in the areas where we've added the green, we're going to go over it with just little touches of the Vein Blue mix. And we're going to blend it with the Genesis, with the brush we've been using with the glazing medium. We're going to avoid the creases and wrinkles with it. We're just going to do the areas we added the green. Clean up any blue that we get on the umbilicus, because we only want it on the cord. I'm going to do this one more time. This time I'm only going to add the Vein Blue in the center of see that. Just going to dip my brush into some of the oil that collects at the bottom of the medium jar, the glazing gel, and continue to blend it into the cord. You just want to build up enough so that the vein looks real and you are content with the color. At this stage of retraction of the cord, the cord is pretty yellow, but the veins become super, super dark and very, very visible and prominent underneath that yellow. And parts of it have the illusion of being green, while the other parts, the deep blue, is shown through. And that's what we are building up. So I'm actually going to add a touch of a bit more blue to some areas to enhance what we just put in the center. Again, I'm going to dip this brush in the oil, and then I'm going to blend it. And I'm really happy with how this looks. So just like with the creasing, I'm actually going to put this in the oven immediately and bake it. And now you can see that it's super realistic looking already with that bluing in there. So now we're going to start adding the discoloration as well as the tip right here. So the tip right here is where the clamp is going to go, but right here is where it was severed. So typically there's some red right here, some reddening happening because that's where the blood came out when it was cut. So this is the only part of the umbilical cord that you will ever use red coloring on, is to imitate the blood, because when the cord's cut, it does bleed. And that dried blood usually stays there on the umbilical cord until at least about 24 hours after birth, I would say. So again, I'm just kind of going over with glazing gel again. And then I'm going to take my brush, and I'm using the Bountiful Baby Lip Blush Nail. I love this color for this particular step. It's like the perfect color for it. And I'm just going to tap that on. You don't want to tap on too much or too little, just enough. Some of it you're going to blend in, some of it you're not. Just like that. And then I'm going to let this sit for about 5 minutes before I move on to my next step. So now that this has rested for a few minutes and the paint and glazing gel are dry, we are going to start enhancing the cord with a bit of yellow. Okay, so again, I'm taking my glazing gel medium and this brush here, and I am coating it all over. And I'm going to add my yellow to the areas where we did not add the blue. I cannot stress the importance of this enough, to only add the yellow to the non-blue areas right in here. I'm going to keep doing this in layers. I'm going to coat it with glazing gel, add yellow, bake. Coat it with glazing gel, add yellow, bake. And I'm going to repeat that until I achieve the desired look of yellow that I'm going for. Okay, so at this point, the first layer of yellow is complete. You don't want to disrupt any of the glazing gel, so that's why you have to do it in layers and bake in between each layer. I just completed my third application of the glazing gel and yellow. And so while it's still wet, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more of that red color to the end of the cord here. And so the reason why I do the red before and after the yellow is because it's more natural and realistic looking to have the blood flow under and over the yellowing of the cord. But this here, I'm just going to add tiny little touches of the red to imitate that blood. Now to make this super realistic, I'm going to make sure that the pooling of the blood is a bit more prominent at the bottom of the umbilical cord than on the top, right on that bottom curve there. And I'm really happy with the blood effect that I have achieved. I think this layer is complete. It's looking super realistic, and now it's time for yet another bake. And here is the cord after having a nice bake. It is very realistic. And then our next step is the last step in this part 1, where we are going to add kind of like a skin depth. So we're going to take this dish here, and I'm going to add a little bit of glazing gel to it. And I'm going to add some titanium white to that. And then to that, I'm going to add some yellow ochre. And it's going to be like a nice creamy color. And I'm going to coat the entire cord with that mixture. And it just brings out all the depth to the cord. And then what's left is this mixture here. I'm going to hang on to this, put a cover over it, and save it for when the baby is completed and we move on to step 2. There's a piece of hair in there. And I'm going to, just in the areas where I really accentuated the blood pool at the bottom, I'm going to just sweep some of that off. And then this, I am going to just hit it with my heat set gun for about 5 minutes or so. And then we will be ready to start step 2. And here is the cord after all of these steps have been completed. It looks really incredible already. And now it's time to bring our baby to life. And now that our tummy plate is completely finished, it is time to add the last couple of steps for the cord. Do you remember that custard mix that we set aside? So we're going to take that now and we're going to add a little bit of Mona Lisa paint thinners to it till it's a nice milky lotiony consistency. And then we're going to wash it over the top of the umbilical cord all throughout the bottom to add depth to everything that we have added to the cord. Be sure to clean up any spray off that happens to fall on your tummy plate. And then once you have reached a nice top coat of skin, bake it like you normally would. Now that that's been baked, we are going to add our final step. I have my ceramic palette here with a nice loose flowy brush. Make sure this brush is really, really flowy and very clean because I like to use my brush to mix this layer. I'm using some Aleene's paper glaze and I'm going to add a small amount to my palette. And then next I'm going to take some glazing medium, Americana, and I'm going to add a drop to the Aleene's paper glaze and then mix it all up nice and good. And this is going to create a really nice top coat to make the umbilical cord look wet and freshly birthed and add so much realism, as well as really seal that paint so that the clamp does not hurt the paint on your cord. Now I'm going to take that nice loose flowy brush and I'm going to apply the glaze in a way to make sure that it doesn't get on any place but the umbilical cord. And I'm going to add this on in several thin layers until I achieve the top glaze that I am looking for. Once done, allow the top coat to dry for 24 hours, and then you will be left with this absolutely gorgeous and extremely realistic umbilical cord that you can leave as is or add a clamp. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments.